Good evening, everyone. Before I start the meeting, I kind of wanted to share with you that we have three of our board members out this evening. One of them is Debbie Blackshire, who's been hospitalized with COVID and double pneumonia. She's been in the hospital for now 15 days. She's gradually getting better, and her family is so appreciative of the outpouring of support and prayers. We all need to keep her in our prayers now and in the future. Julie Heineman is absent tonight because she and her husband are taking their daughter to college in Florida, and as her daughter goes into her sophomore year, her daughter is taking her car, so they're making sure she gets there. And then Dr. Ogtree and his wife had planned a vacation and working trip, and so they had already planned to be out this week, and so they're out of town. So I just wanted to let you know why there's three of them missing tonight. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees are now convened in a regular board meeting on Thursday, August 5th, 2021, in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center located at 10,300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 6 p.m. I want to welcome the members of our audience and our television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports from the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on Comcast Channel 16 and the district website. They will also be available on video on demand on the district website following tonight's meeting. For the video to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode, which I'm about to do right now. So please join me if you've got a cell phone. Okay, I'm off. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our Community Leadership Committee members who are in attendance this evening. Would y'all please stand? Stacy Anderson. Stacy, thank you. Fred Benson. Thank you, Fred. Nancy Frankel. There she is, over in the corner. These people are a member of our Community Leadership Committee. They meet monthly, and they really get to delve into the Cypress School District and find out more information. It's awesome that they do and volunteer. We were going to have the Girl Scouts present the flags, but unfortunately they couldn't show. So the invocation for tonight's board meeting will be given by Chris Hall, Associate Missions Pastor, Houston Northwest Church. Chris and his wife Heather, a CFISD teacher, have two boys, both attending the CFISD schools. Chris has served Houston Northwest Missions Ministry in various roles over the last 5 years and looks forward to continuing to invest in the local schools in the years ahead. Thank you, Chris, for being here tonight, and we appreciate your ongoing support of the district. After the invocation, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, thank you that you would even desire to listen to us, desire to be with your people, your creation. And as we, as citizens of this community in various roles, various aspects of influence, come together, that you would be honored in our sight, that you would be honored in our speech, in our time together in this meeting. And as we exit, may we just see each other first and foremost, each one of us as your creation, knowing that you have put your image on each and every one of us. And may we be able to respect and know that that is true in all things. And God, as we come together in this meeting, we pray for the need for consistency in uncertain times. We ask that you give us a pathway to unity and an understanding between each other and with you. During these times, Lord, we call upon you to be our rock and our cornerstone. And for the leaders that are here on this board, we ask that you would just develop within them a supernatural wisdom during times of unknown, during times of uncertainty, that through the renewing of their minds, that they might be able to discern your will for the staff and the teachers and the students represented in this fine district. Specifically, Lord, we call upon you to give healing to Mrs. Blackshear and in her health issues, that you would just do a supernatural thing in her life, whether that be through doctors or however you deem it, so that she may be able to walk out of that hospital with 100% health restoration. Lord, we pray for teachers to have the endurance that is required for a school year, the energy, the time that is needed to do what they always do, and that is to bring success in the lives of students in Cypher. And that during that time that they have with those students, that relationships be made that are healthy, that are pure, that are ones that bring just excellence in the classroom. And finally, Lord, we ask that you would just be with our students as they prepare for the upcoming school year, that you would constrain in their hearts and in their minds the pursuit of promise for the areas of their academics, those that are in drama, those that are in sports, and in their personal lives, that would ultimately bring you glory in all things. For you are good, and for you are righteous. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Since you've not heard enough from me, I am also going to be reading the vision and mission statement for the benefit of the audience. Our vision at CFISD is formed by the acronym LEAD, to learn, empower, achieve, dream. LEAD. Our mission is to maximize every student's potential through rigorous and relevant learning experiences, preparing students to be 21st century global leaders. We don't have any recognitions, but I will turn it over to Dr. Henry for remarks and announcements. Dr. Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Covey. Just a few exciting things that since the school year ended that I'd like to report on. Cypress Ranch High School 2018 graduates Colton Kauser and Ty Madden were both selected on the first day of the 2021 Major League Baseball first-year player draft on July 11th. Kauser was selected 5th overall by the Baltimore Orioles, while Madden was picked 32nd overall by the Detroit Tigers. And I believe that's either 4 or maybe 5 from Cy Ranch in the last 5 or 6 years that have been drafted. So very, very impressive program there. Yeah. Cypress Lakes High School junior Anastasia Sewell won the Class 6A Lincoln Douglas Debate State Championship held virtually on May 26th. Lincoln-Douglas debate, also referred to as values debate, conducted in a one-on-one format. Bridgeland High School seniors Puneet Paul, Sarvani Nukala, Jennifer Lynn, and Daitri Gundappa placed first for their public service announcement at the Health Occupation Students of America International Leadership Conference held virtually June 23rd through 26th. HOSA is an extracurricular program that is designed to develop future healthcare leaders through student-led activities. And some of these next folks you may have seen over the last few weeks. CFISD alumni recently competed in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, which conclude on Sunday. Cypress Springs High School alum Kat Osterman played on the U.S. softball team. Cy Falls High School Scott Casimir played on the USA baseball team, and they're still playing, I believe. Cypress Springs alum Lawson Craddock competed on the USA cycling team. Cypress Woods alum Erica Ogumake played on the Nigerian basketball team. Cypress Woods 2021 graduate Munzer Kabara swam for Team Lebanon. And also Jersey Village alum Caitlin Eaton will play for the USA wheelchair basketball team in the upcoming Paralympic Games. That's all I have tonight, Mr. Covey.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. 4A, patrons who have duly registered per policy BED local may address the board and make public comments on an agenda item during or before the board's consideration of the item. The board may allow public comment on agenda items at all meetings. The board will continue with the remaining agenda after the registered patrons have had an opportunity to speak. We do have people signed up. I will remind you that you have 2 minutes to talk. The light system is over here. Are you going to run it, Tom? All right, thank you. So when you start, the green light will come on. At 30 seconds before the end, the yellow light will come on. And when the red light comes on, please summarize and complete what you're doing. So the first up is Charlotte Lampe. Charlotte?
Wow, isn't this home week? Good to see you all again. I'm here to address the action item 9A, and that's the election that you're going to be calling here pretty soon. And in the early 90s, throughout the mid-90s, I did not miss one work session or board meeting. And one of the reasons that we came, and I came and came to speak to y'all, is because we were concerned about a certain issue, and that issue was year-round school. And sooner and later, we went through elections. And we started with two people on the board that agreed with us, and that was Ron Kennedy and Ron Graham, who was my mentor here in Cy-Fair and has been a lifelong friend. And one of the things that we came to understanding is there was a lack of communication and a lack of dialogue about an issue that really concerned us. And we took it to the board, we took it to the issue, we took it to the community, and I want to applaud every parent here that is here for a concern that they have on a certain issue or the benefits of their education for their children. What I would hope is that we have an open dialogue on some concerns about critical race theory. That could be the year-round school issue that fought here. We went to war over that issue. We did. And today, I feel as though that there's not been a really good communication as far as what the facts are, what the direction is, and what's really going on here in Cy-Fair. And as an old war general that took this school district through a really tumultuous time, and parents should have the direction on their children's education, not vendors, and not the trustees. Had trustees listened to the parents in year-round school with that issue, I believe we wouldn't have had to go through so many years of turmoil.
Thank you, Charlotte.
So my
Thank you.
issue today is, could we have a
Thank you,
community
Charlotte.
platform where
Thank
we
you.
have a discussion?
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Burke P. Miller. Okay.
I'm speaking on 9D, the child abuse amendment, or that you guys you have in the agenda. At the board meeting in June, several of you said critical race theory was not being taught in the district. However, in your resolution condemning racism from last September, you opposed racism, discrimination, injustice, inequality, prejudice, and listed systemic racism and systemic oppression as well. Those last two are where you lost me and most other people. Well, what is the definition of systemic racism? It is racism written into America's laws, institutions, and capitalist system. American culture is actually the norms and practices of white people. All white people are racist and oppressors. Systemic racism says racism is not an individual conscious decision to be a racist or act on that belief. First and foremost, we are all unique individuals. What a person thinks, says, and does pretty much determines who they are, not their skin color. Systemic racism is one of the key elements of CRT. Some others include white privilege. All whites have an unfair advantage. Beliefs and behaviors are inherent in identity categories such as race. Again, no individuality or personal responsibility. Meritocracy is a myth. Measuring skills and knowledge such as ACT and SAT testing must be eliminated. I guess that would mean AP classes would have to stop as well. Several Cypher schools use no place for hate materials. In the 5 to 6 hours I spent online researching their lesson plans, seminars, and reading items of 800 books, I found some good and appropriate material. But I also found some that were very negative in tone, especially to whites, way too graphic and disturbing. If these elements were used in elementary school or middle school, they would clearly be child abuse. Some materials were anti-capitalist, promoted socialism, even Marxism, and some had pornographic content. If you don't believe me, just check out the CRT books, seminars, and videos that are available. Robin DiAngelo, Ibrahim Kendi, Barbara Applebaum are just a few.
Summarize, Mr. Miller, please.
Okay,
Go
last
ahead.
sentence. No Place for Hate is loaded with racist CRT material and needs close monitoring.
Thank you. Donna Stallone.
Thank you. My son received his Eagle Scout from Bridgeland High School, and I want to thank you for your coin that you sent, Mark Henry. But I want to give you a challenge also, because after I saw what I saw from the last board meeting, there seemed to be a really disconnect. There was a real inability or unwillingness for this board to see what the parents were trying to bring to the table. The social emotional learning, the critical race theory, or whatever you want to coin it, is just the cover story for hate. And I'm deeply disturbed by the fact that we were invited to leave, because we don't work for you, you work for us. I'm deeply disturbed by the fact that we are graduating seniors with honors that don't know how to write a sentence. They don't know how to make change, and they don't know how to address an envelope. And I know this because my son graduated with honors, and I have a tutor for him, okay? I hired her from Prairie View University, and I don't care that she's black. I don't. I'm tired of us being pitted against each other. What the parents were wanting was you all to put into policy something that would support Steve Toth's bill, HB 3979. It needs to happen, because as I went to the Capitol and I looked at people testifying, we had teachers that had rogue teacher, disruptive teacher on it. That's signaling. That's what our kids are going to learn. And I think it's a shame. We need to be teaching kids how to look beyond the 6 inches of this phone and connect with the person next to them. Teach them how to communicate. Do some impromptu speeches where they're actually doing something to get to know their neighbor. What do they have in common? Because I can tell you, I'm not here because I have white fragility. My husband was diagnosed with cancer just like Tom Jackson was, and it's been a bitter battle for 8 years. I thank you all, and I'm begging you to listen to the parents.
Thank you, Ms. Stallone.
Thank you.
I apologize. I'm not going to say this name correctly. I'm sorry. Can you tell me what it is? Here she comes. I'm looking forward to learning how to pronounce it.
Hi, my name is Aisha Andemayo,
Thank you.
and I'm talking about character strong because the board brought this up to the agenda. They're going to spend money on it. So I did a little research, and I found that in Missouri, the training says that they will provide information and materials on how to infuse social emotional learning and character development into the daily fabric of your school, and it suggests bringing a team with principals, counselors, community members, and students. I couldn't help but notice how closely this resembles No Place for Hate. No Place for Hate infuses highly emotional, fear-evoking videos with mainstream media's social issues. And if you want to know which lessons exactly, I have flyers. They're available for anybody. I have 250 copies. It also has a team that supports No Place for Hate. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay, No Place for Hate also has a team with principals, counselors, teachers, students, and parents. But I found that parents don't really want to be involved in teams of this nature. And at Holmesley Elementary, they reported that on parent recruitment for No Place for Hate, we still did not get many parents. We have our parents who our staff members sign. So if the board is getting staff members to pose as parents, I mean, they may be parents, but they're not parents unaffiliated with the district, I think that's wrong. And I don't think you should do another program where it's going to have these community members that really may or may not be parents of not affiliated with the school. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Ms. Andemayo. William Ellie? Eli? Ely.
Fine, thank you. I've been called worse. My glasses out, sorry. So I was speaking on 9L as well, character strong. Is Cypher ISD supposed to be teaching about values, attitudes, mindsets, behaviors, or reading, writing, and arithmetic? Social emotional learning, like Character Strong, fundamentally transfers teaching responsibility on these issues from the family, civil, and religious institutions to the school, or effectively the government. National assessments of education progress, student scores, continue to show poor accomplishments in reading and math nationally and worldwide, yet these programs want to probe our children's minds rather than teaching them academic knowledge. Well-known researchers like Gorman calls CEL the latest big education fad. Robbins calls it a terrifying experiment in social engineering. Ephraim refers it to as an Orwellian idea. Finn calls it a hoax with roots in faux psychology. And the Pioneer Institute recently summarized, said this could lead to psychological manipulation of students, threats to their data privacy, indoctrination, and the erosion of freedom of conscience. By what right does Cypher ISD establish approved mindsets to be programmed into our children? By what right does it permit minimally trained personnel to measure our children's adoption of these mindsets? And by what right does Cypher ISD do any of this without notifying or obtaining consent from the children's parents? If you don't want to listen to my words, I encourage you to listen to the CEO of Collaborative Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, the predominant corporation promoting CEL framework. And she says, we revised the definition to highlight the value as a weapon for social justice, helps move a child from anger to agency to action. Any taxpayer funding for CEL or for Character Strong related programs should be stopped immediately, and instead we ought to focus on genuine academic achievement. Our children are not lab rats. Stop the experimentation.
Judy DeHaan.
Too bad Mr. Ogletree isn't here this evening. Good evening. My name is Judy DeHaan, and I am speaking on the agenda regarding the Social and Emotional Learning Program, Character Strong, and the minutes from the June 24th meeting. Mr. Ogletree regarding his comments about racism and the inference that the community was playing partisan politics by bringing forward concerns regarding their children's education. The board stated that there is no CRT in the curriculum. I mentioned that social and emotional learning is one of the terms and methods utilized in bringing CRT constructs into K through 12 education. And tonight it's on the agenda, just as you've heard, to add new SEL curriculum, Character Strong. I also asked the board last time in speaking about the resolution and claims of systemic racism, what are your examples or definition of this in Cypher ISD? By making these claims in the resolution, you are asserting that all or most of Cypher parents and students are infected with continuing racism. You then use this racial narrative to justify a board obligation to shape or educate the students toward a better America free of racism and systemic oppression. Mr. Ogletree stated that we had over 9,000 students to graduate and not a one had been taught CRT. If they had not been taught CRT, why then put this resolution into place in September of 2020 and infer there is systemic racism in Cypher? And he made other comments as well. He accused us of putting politics into this conversation. Are you the ones bringing your beliefs into the policies for Cypher ISD in this resolution and ignoring the facts? Parents and citizens brought you evidence that you ignored as CRT. And here's just a few examples of what some of the Facebook posts are of bringing hatred speech into the realm of our conversation. The stakeholders believe, do you or the stakeholders of Cypher ISD believe that they are racist? Of course not. You have insulted Cypher parents and taxpayers, and you owe them a public apology. More importantly, our children deserve transparency and the elimination of social and emotional learning, justice learning, equity initiatives that serve to foster division in community, families, and do nothing for their academic achievement.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the board comments portion of the agenda. Any board member may make a comment during this portion of the agenda without prior posting being required. Comment items may not pertain to the character of any students, staff, or board member and may not be discussed or deliberated upon at this meeting. Board members. Don, do you have anything? No? Mr. Jackson, do you?
You know me, Bob. I never stop talking.
Okay.
Our room tonight is full of good people who are passionate about their concerns. Welcome, friends. Passion and decorum. About 12 years ago or so, two men who wear different colored jerseys and who I hold in high regard both felt the need to lecture me on decorum. To paraphrase their comments, Tom, I will always listen to my constituents first, and if someone leads with a rude comment, it is difficult for me to hear what they say. The other one said, Tom, if you don't modify your behavior, no one will listen to you. I have tried to heed their advice. One of these men became lieutenant governor for our great state of Texas, and the other was superintendent of one of the largest school districts in our country. The virus. The virus is real. There's an empty seat on the board dais because of the virus. As cancer survivors know, there is a new normal. We also know students learn better in person. We had a robust summer school with over 25,000 students, some with mask on, some with mask off. Going forth wearing a mask is parental choice. Like several in this room, I have active cancer, and I have been vaccinated. I urge all unvaccinated adults who are in contact with children to revisit the vaccination decision. I have been in communication with senior management, and they are reviewing steps that can be taken to enhance campus safety with their primary partner, the Methodist Hospital, and they're in dialogue with Memorial Hermann. Hearing in history. After the last board meeting, I had a 2-hour lunch with Joe Beatty, who may or may not be in the audience tonight. He wanted to be certain that I heard and understood some of the concerns which were expressed by patrons of this district and others. I heard, I understood. In turn, I mentioned to him that the State Board of Education sets the TEKS, and our curriculum is based upon the TEKS. We require our teachers to teach the curriculum which follows the TEKS. Students may, however, independently find other material on the internet. I also wanted him to understand the concept of an audit. I am a CPA and I hold 2 other certifications. I was an audit manager and a computer audit manager with the international firm now known as Ernst & Young. While in their employ, I wrote and taught a 2-day internal audit seminar. One of the clients, Fortune 500 company, was Pioneer Corporation. I have signed audit opinions and have been audited by internal, external, state, and federal auditors. Audits are uncomfortable but a necessary requirement and best practices for different entities, and our district happens to be one of them. I called for an independent audit just of construction, and Mark, we could probably schedule another one of those. Also an outside review of salaries and an outside independent equity audit as well. Federal and state laws require review. By law, we have a public review every year of student attainment by ethnicity. I was a low-level member of the Chancellor's Council of Admiral McRaven when he effectively called for an equity review. He was not popular from a political perspective, but he was strategically correct, and I believe we are as well. I tip my hat tonight to the Cy-Fair Educational Foundation Director Marie Holmes and the students who were the scholarship recipients and the donors and sponsors who made it possible, but most particularly to Oshoki and Vivi, who received my scholarships, one to attend Texas Tech and the other my alma mater, University of Texas, respectively. Thank you.
Ms. Sarabia?
Hello, everyone. For those that you were here a little earlier, hopefully y'all didn't see me with my misstep I had entering the door. Almost a good caption to catch for the end of the summer. Welcome, everybody. Always glad to have everybody here. We had a month off from our last board meeting, and I want to address something at the beginning here. In the May meeting, I saw a social media post that caused me to believe that Senator Betancourt had made negative comments about teachers during a legislative hearing, and I repeated this in my board comments. I have since learned that the post was wrong, and Senator Betancourt did not make these comments. And so I want to publicly retract my statements made in the May meeting. Also, I'm really excited about the upcoming year. I want things to get back to as much normalcy as we can. I'm waiting for that first kickoff football game that they posted. I believe it's Bridgeland and Ranch, or
No, Bridgeland and Outside.
and Fair.
It's on ESPN,
Yeah.
one of Klein's schools.
Oh, Klein School. So it's
Klein College or Klein.
It's a big game, football game, and I saw it come out, and I'm like, oh, I got to be there. So hopefully we can get in there and stuff. We have all kinds of activities starting up. The ball players are going. If you haven't gone by the schools and hear the bands playing, I'm sure you can go at a certain time of the day and hear the bands playing. We have volleyball scrimmages going on throughout the city of Houston starting tomorrow. I'll be at Memorial High School for that, one of those scrimmages going on over there, and readily accept any of the multitude of games that I'm able to be present at throughout the city and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to a hopefully back to normalcy semester for the children and for the parents too, and everything else. So, but welcome everybody. I was glad to see everybody here and present. And again, my prayers are to the Blackshear family, and we pray for Debbie just about every night before we go to bed, and we think of Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. One of the good things that I've heard is that our summer school, we've had almost 30,000 students attending summer school this summer, and that is free. The district covered the cost on it, and it was to help kids that were falling behind and trying to bring them up. But we also know that when we did our camp summit in the summer, it kept the summer slide from happening and having to start all over again in September when the kids came back to school. So I'm very tickled that we had that many students that were attending our summer session. I'll also tell you and share with you that CFISD was awarded a federal grant from the National Security Agency called Star Talk, and it was to support teaching and learning of critical new need languages. It is an honor to announce that Cyfair was a recipient of the first Chinese immersion summer camp. There are only 70 funded student programs across the country, and CFISD was selected as one of the 22 new programs, and it was quite impressive to go through Lampkin Elementary and see what they were doing there. It's very, very nice to be able to see. And I'll also just make one final statement, and that is, I know that you do not think we listen, but we do listen. And I know that you don't think we make good decisions sometimes, but we really try to look at what's best for the entire district. One of the good things that you've got here is we are all at large. We don't have a specific geographical area that we represent. There are a number of districts that have to do that, and they protect their specific geographical area, and I will give HISD as the example, and that in some of those situations they need to make changes, but they're afraid to because they don't want to hurt the community. We are all at large. We look at the entire district. We certainly encourage anybody to come and talk with us. That's why we allow citizen participation, and we appreciate y'all being here. If you're angry with us, I'm glad you're here anyway, so I can hear what you have to say. I may not agree with you, and you may not agree with me, but that's kind of what we do in America, and I appreciate that. Now we will make a break, and then we will move on to, we have citizen participation. I'm sorry. I didn't see the list. Excuse me. Okay, citizen participation who have duly registered per policy BED local may address the board regarding matters of concern or interest to the district other than the character of any student, staff, or board member. The board may not act upon any matter that is not listed under the action item portion of the agenda. Let me underline that because I know some people get up here and expect us to make an immediate decision. If it's not in our action item and not posted, we cannot address it tonight. Okay, that doesn't mean we don't take it in our interest. So we'll move on to the citizen participation. Angela Martin Greer. Okay.
I'd like to first thank the board for an opportunity to speak. I'm sure we can all agree that keeping our children safe and secure is our top priority. As parents, we want the best for our kids and will do whatever it takes to make that a reality. As adults, it is our job to provide children with the best opportunity to succeed. As a school district, it is your role to educate students, give them the tools necessary to achieve that success through quality resources in a safe environment. Unfortunately, the ongoing pandemic poses a challenge to this. Currently, Texas is one of the hot spots for the fourth surge of COVID cases. Hospitalizations of children with COVID-19 rapidly accelerated in June and July, and their numbers are now matching peak levels reached last winter, according to the pediatric chief at Texas Children's Hospital. As a Cyfair resident and family member of students and both faculty alike, I'm concerned about their safety. As you know, someone can be asymptomatic and transmit COVID to others unknowingly, putting their family, friends, and neighbors at risk. To date, according to Harris County Public Health, only 45% of the population of Texas is fully vaccinated. Of that, less than 25% of children between the ages of 12 and 15 are vaccinated. And unfortunately, 99% of the current COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths from February to July in Texas were among the unvaccinated. We are at a critical crossroad in our country. On one hand, we can leave it up to the state to determine what is best for the district, or we can choose the safety of our children, our teachers, our family, and our community by defying the executive order and requiring masks in our district. Last week, the CDC released new guidance that all students and staff in schools should wear a mask. The American Pediatric Association similarly stated that everyone over the age of 2 should wear one. We need the district to reinstate common sense safety measures where we have had in the past, which were masks, social distancing, shields, frequent hand sanitizing, daily disinfecting.
Thank you, Ms. Greer. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Wilson.
Can I speak at this one?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me speak tonight.
Well, hold on. Before you start, the lights are over here. You don't have one on that side. Okay?
Where is the light?
It's showing the green one there, Tom.
Okay.
There you
Gotcha.
go. All right.
So the following is taken from the Anti-Defamation League's Anti-Bias Building Blocks, an elementary curriculum, Section 9 of Lesson 21, titled Being an Ally, and is intended for grades 3 through 5. Write a realistic fiction story in which there is bullying, prejudice, or discrimination, and an ally gets involved. I read this because teaching our children to not participate in bullying and discrimination is positive and should be embraced by all. But teaching so-called anti-bias will lead to greater conflict and division. For if there is an ally, then there is also an enemy. You are teaching our children that it is not enough to be kind and respectful to everyone. You are teaching them that they must fight their enemies. In the ADL's own words, No Place for Hate seeks to move on from kindness. Schools need to foster social justice. One only needs to look at the riots and violence of the summer of 2020 and the Capitol in 2021 to see the results of this mindset. We cannot allow this to continue. The No Place for Hate curriculum adopted by CFISD is in direct conflict with traditional values taught in homes across the district. And let me be clear, traditional values are not racism or other forms of discrimination. They're being strong, independent, kind to your neighbor, respecting differences of opinion, and that anyone can achieve their dreams. This new curriculum isn't about stopping hate. It's about encouraging our children to ally with activist groups to promote social justice. Because without allies, fringe movements cannot gain wider acceptance. If you don't believe me, here are the next 4 lessons in the ADL's elementary curriculum. Challenging prejudice and discrimination, strength in numbers, exploring social change movements, and social action projects. CFISD's anti-bias curriculum will increase conflict and division and ultimately hate. It needs to be abandoned immediately before it causes further harm. Thank you for your time.
William Ellie.
Lucky night. Thank you. My name is William Ely, and I'm a parent of 2 here in Cypher ISD. My comments refer to meeting minutes from the June 24th meeting. First, I find it extremely ironic how much detail is provided in these meetings minutes for board comments, and yet almost nothing noted in comments from the public. So much transparency in wanting to hear from the community, let alone properly documenting the spirit of that meeting. Second, I want to be perfectly clear. Those against CRT are not against teaching our nation's history, including our greatest sin, slavery. Age-appropriate content on this issue absolutely should be taught. However, a redeeming point of view in that we have a long history, whites and blacks, fighting together to overcome this sin. Our history should bring us together, not further divide us. Racism, yes, I'm sure it exists. Systemic racism, please show us the evidence. Third, I will address Mr. Ryan's claim regarding the implicit bias video. According to his comments, an email was sent to Bridgeland parents for their input. That could not be further from the truth. I know because I received that email, and there's not a single reference in it asking for parental input prior to the video being shown. Fourth, I will address Mr. Ogletree's mantra, opportunity for all. He found it necessary to repeat it 7 times. Interesting, there wasn't a single argument, not one, against opportunity for all. We support equal opportunity. We are protesting equity and equal outcomes, which I am confident Mr. Ogletree knows this is a Marxist idea, a proven, terribly bad idea, and that this is the opposite of the civil rights movement. Lastly, the resolution. If systemic racism exists in Cyfair, as your signatures imply, are you suggesting our community is racist? What does that say about you? Since many of you have been serving this board for 16 years. According to Ryan, Ogletree, and Covey, CRT is emphatically not, never has been, not a single student in Cypher been taught CRT.
Thank you,
then
sir.
it should not be a burden for you guys to pass a resolution and a policy prohibiting the teaching of its tenets.
Thank you. Next up is Constant, and I can't read the last name. Constance? Help me on your last name when you get to the podium, please.
My name is Constance Sarai.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here today because I have a grandson that attends Cyfair. And every year I take him to and bring him home for school. I love my grandson. He's so dear to us. He does have some underlying conditions. And several times last year, I had to pick him up from the school because he had caught several infections from the school. Today, I just would like to emphasize a few questions to every last one of us. And this is about our children. The first thing I want to ask, how could you explain to your child, he or she, that they gave COVID to their favorite teacher and the results end in death? How could you explain to your child, their best friend, because there's no law to mandate masks in school, had died of COVID? How could you explain to your child that they gave their little sister or brother COVID-19 and they died because they were too young to get vaccinated? How could you explain to your child that grandpa and grandma died because they gave them COVID-19? How could you explain the reason why they are so sick, facing the fact of death because there's a law to mandate no mask in school? How would you cope with your child committing suicide because of his and hers guilt that they gave someone they love COVID-19 that caused death? Finally, I would like to ask you, would you let an intruder come in your home, kill your family? No, you will not let an intruder come in your home and kill your family. You will protect your family. Well, I guess what? COVID-19 is an intruder, and he's coming to kill our family.
Thank you very much.
We must mandate masks.
Sephra Perkins. Sephra Perkins. If you didn't sign up, there's no need to talk. Sephra.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not here to make a plea for anybody to wear a mask. I'm not making a plea for anybody to get vaccinated because I personally believe that is everyone's choice. However, what I want answers from you all today because I want to understand, I understand that the Democrats pulled the stunt and they didn't vote to do the funding for a virtual learning option. Well, we know, and I'm gonna just level this because this is a virus. It will kill anybody. I am proof of that. I almost died. I have 3 blood clots in my lungs today as I stand here. So therefore, since we know that it is a personal choice if you want to be masked or you don't want to be masked, if you don't want to be vaccinated and you want to be vaccinated, why are we not offering a virtual learning option for parents to make that choice? So therefore, we can level this because the school district itself can actually offer this option through the funding that I get it. We don't have the state funding, which I totally get. But we do, we have taxpayer dollars, we have federal dollars as well. Because if we don't offer the virtual learning option, because we know the choices that this is a choice for everybody to make, we're not gonna have any children to teach. So I want to understand what the school district is doing in regards to this, because this is a decision that needs to be made, and it needs to be made soon, because our kids are getting ready to go back to school. I also want to know, are you all moving the start date back for school? And if you're not doing that, are our teachers going to be required to are they going to be required to be vaccinated? Because everybody keeps saying these are choices, but nobody's giving specific answers on how to address this problem.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Perkins.
you.
Stacy Anderson.
Hello, President Covey, Dr. Henry, trustees, admin team. I stood here at this podium this time last year as an active volunteer and community leader in Cypress to share that I believe the community was generally supportive of the work you have done to ensure academic attainment and would support an equity audit. I believe that is still true for the majority of our community. However, concern has surfaced in Cypher, which is that critical race theory, a legal theory taught at the college level, is being taught in public K-12 schools. This is not appropriate for secondary education. As a member of the District Community Leadership Committee, I inquired directly to administration to understand if this is true, and I received assurance that CRT is not being taught and never has been. Cypher teaches the required state curriculum per the TEKS developed and approved by the duly elected State Board of Education. Teachers are required and know how to teach lessons on social studies and history that discuss racism and its impact objectively as set by local board policy. And that the purpose of the equity audit is to review all district policies and practices to ensure that all students have access to the resources, instruction, and academic support needed to achieve academic goals as required by federal law. Thank you for clarifying that, and I encourage you to post a statement of that information on the district website. Regarding the recent spike in the cases of COVID-19 Delta variant, the governor issued an executive order on July 29th prohibiting school districts from requiring face covering. The recent state legislature did not authorize funding for virtual education delivered by public schools for this school year. Concerns about both of these issues should be addressed to state elected officials. Governor Abbott has called a second special session that begins this Saturday, and he can add these issues to the agenda. They can only be considered if they are on the agenda, so please contact his office before Saturday. In the meantime, if virtual education is the best choice for your family, there are a number of free online schooling opportunities for kids grades 3 through 12 approved by TEA.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Candace Bryant.
I was unable to attend the June 24th meeting as I was out of town. However, I woke up Friday morning, June 25th, and immediately went online to watch the meeting. I listened as a board member stated how he had never been so disappointed and couldn't believe how grown-ups were acting. Let me tell you what I'm disappointed in and what I can't believe grown-ups are doing. I'm disappointed my girls are attending a school district where grown-ups on the school board believe in the teachings of CRT. You may not call it CRT, you can dress it up any way you want, but some of you agree with the fundamentals of this theory. I'm disappointed with the grown-up music teacher at Matsky Elementary who told my daughter's second grade class last Christmas they couldn't sing Jingle Bells anymore because that song is racist. I'm disappointed that a certain number of grown-ups decided to bring 275 vaccines for teenagers to Cypher High School last spring without any parental input. And lastly, I'm disappointed that a grown-up who claimed at the last meeting it's not about politics and reminded us to choose faith over politics based on his Facebook post and Twitter post is nothing more than a Marxist-loving, cop-hating, and thinks anyone who voted for Trump is a racist sits on this board. We are not going away. We are getting bigger and stronger, and we are not going to stop fighting for our kids. Thank you.
Chase Greer. Chase Greer.
Hello. Initially I was going to talk about masks, but after being in the room, I've seen that something that is a very hot button issue seems to be CRT. As a former student of Cypher, I can say definitively I didn't learn any of that in school. I'm now a college student at Baylor University, so go Bears, yeah, and we end up having things in our social studies and other thing that does give us a little bit of education on that, but that is nothing that I ever dealt with at Cypher. And as I think of a lot of the things that we've been discussing and that's going forward in the later this year and that's on the agenda, I greatly fear that the divisiveness will continue. I understand that no one wants CRT, it's not there, and the education that we're getting is inefficient. But it is up to the individual on what they want to teach their children and how they want it to be taught. I personally went to a number of different schools within Cypher, and I can say that the education was very varied at each location, but that the overarching theme was of one of inclusivity. I stand here today not to require anyone to change their mind or to think of things as something other than what it is, just to be open-minded to those who disagree with you. We often talk about how we want to be able to disagree without being disagreeable, but oftentimes it becomes an echo chamber and nothing gets discussed. Thank you.
Fred Benson.
Good evening, President Covey, trustees, Dr. Henry, administrators, community. I'm here to say thank you. I'm here to say thank you to the teacher who stays late. I want to say thank you to the paraprofessional who is completely overwhelmed and works their tail off for all of our kids. I want to say thank you to the nurses who hold the hands of a 7-year-old who already has diabetes. I want to say thank you to the counselors who sit with a child whose grandma is in the hospital. I want to say thank you to the innumerable support staff that make our schools go. So numerous that I would leave somebody out if I tried to thank all the different roles. We put our children on a bus. We say a small prayer, and we all want them back safely at the end of the day. All of us share that in some way. I want to say thank you to the administrators who keep it all going. This has been an unbelievably difficult year. We're not done with COVID yet. Thank you to everybody that busts their tail for all of our children.
Last speaker is Suzanne Stoneham.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Stoneham. My husband and I have lived in Cypress for 15 years now. Our 3 children enjoy attending Cypress schools. Every year since our eldest was in kindergarten, there has been an issue of concern at some point in the school year, but we've been able to address it with a teacher or an administrator. And many of the concerns we've addressed at home with family conversations of truth and our faith in Jesus Christ. For example, one of our sons in early elementary school came up home upset over an English assignment that he had missed a question on. They had read a passage about a young girl praying to and worshiping a mountain. He got counted off because he said it was wrong to pray to and worship a mountain. In our faith, we only pray to Jesus Christ. I give that example because our faith is the most important part of our family, but I felt like we could handle that at home with conversation. Then the 2021 school year happened, and the issues are bigger than family conversations or conversations with the teachers and administrators. These issues need to be addressed district-wide. In February, I received an email from Bridgeland High School with a link to a video that was to be viewed by the students in the upcoming No Place for Hate school-wide activity. The video is about implicit bias and basically said, if you are a white male, you show negative bias to others. According to this video, my 2 sons are wrong no matter what their character and actions show. But someone thought it was a good idea to show a diversive video. I have a problem with that. As I began to research No Place for Hate, I found that it is written and supported by the Anti-Defamation League. On the surface, it seems good, don't bully, but they support pushing young children to change genders and equity education. I have a problem with that. All the students have laptops now, which is great. They're educational. They have many things on there that teach them, but my 6-year-old has one and has unlimited access to all kinds of things. Luckily, her teacher limited what they could do, but what's to say the other teachers won't show them the Brain Pop video that supports Black Lives Matter organization? I ask you to remove No Place for Hate from our district.
Thank you. We will now take a 5-minute break, and that's only 5 minutes. If you want to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, you're certainly welcome to. If you want to leave, you're welcome to leave. Appreciate everyone for being here tonight. Thank you. 7A, the administration will discuss the work of the Superintendent Student Leadership Advisory Committee, SSLAC, for the 2021-2022 school year. Dr. Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Covey, and
please move on out, please. Everybody, if you're going to talk, please move on to the mic.
Mr. Covey, as you know, and the board knows, I have a group of about 60 high schoolers from all 12 of our high schools that discuss issues and give input because, let's face it, the real customers of our school district are our students, and most of our high school students have gone through elementary and middle school here in Cy-Fair ISD, so they provide a lot of great insight on a lot of very, very difficult subjects. And in fact, when we were looking at the 2019 bond election, after we'd had several unfortunate school shootings around the country, we asked that group to help us put together a plan that would make them feel more safe, and they helped us do that. In fact, some of those actually served on the long-range planning committee. And, you know, after hearing some of the comments after the last couple of months, I just thought, you know, I need to get our students involved and let them tell me what the issues are on their campuses so that we can do something that benefits them and make sure that they feel safe, that they don't feel bullied, that they feel accepted. And it's a great group. Like I said, it's students from all 12 high schools. They're all across the spectrum of grades. It's not all super duper honor Ivy League students. It's a good mix. So we get a good sense of what's going on in the district. And then also that's one of the things that I want to have this group address this year and give some feedback so that we can create a better plan that meets their needs moving forward. And then one of the other issues that I want to get this group to talk about is safety and health concerns from a COVID standpoint. What can we do to help them feel safer as we go through? It looks like at least a couple of 3 more months of COVID. And then, one of our health professionals here in the district, she said something today that I'd never heard before, but I think it's something that all of you will be hearing in the future, that we're really no longer in a pandemic, where it's endemic. In other words, every year, kind of like the flu and other diseases, this unfortunately is probably going to show its head. So we have to not just prepare for pandemic response, but something that might continue, at least in some form. I'm hoping a much lower form. So a great group of seniors, and I want to involve them and then involve their parents, and maybe come back to this board next spring with some ideas of how we can address these very difficult decisions as we move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. 8, action items on the consent. 8A, the board will consider approving the minutes of June 21st, 2021 special called board meeting. 8B, the board will consider approving the minutes of the June 24th, 2021 regular board meeting. If any board member wishes to remove one or both items for further discussion, please do so at this time. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consensus items as recommended or amended. Board?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consensus items as recommended and or amended.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Arabia. Any questions at this point? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous of the 4 of us. The board will now review and discuss the following non-consent action items. 9A, the board will consider approving an election order calling for an election on Tuesday, November the 2nd, 2021 for the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Trustees positions 5, 6, and 7. We only have questions tonight. Are there any questions from the board? If not, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve an election order calling for an election on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021 for Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Trustees, position 5, 6, and 7.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Any questions or concerns? All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. The board will consider endorsing the following candidates for the TASB Board of Directors representing Region 4. Since our last board meeting, we have received 2 additional candidates for the TASB Board of Directors, so we're going to vote on all 3 of the candidates at this time. These people are not running against each other. They are representing a different position. Region 4, Position A is Georgianne Rittmeyer. That is Klein. Region 4, Position B is Dr. Darlene Bro. I believe that's Spring. And Region 4, Position C is Tony Hopkins. I forget which one he is. I think he's Friendswood, but I'm not sure. I'm sorry. It is Friendswood. All right, any questions? If not, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board endorse the following candidates for TASB's Board of Directors representing Region 4, Georgia Rittmeyer for position A, Dr. Darlene Bro for position B, and Tony Hopkins for position C.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. May I have a second? Thank you, Gilbert. Any questions? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. 9C, the board will consider a resolution approving the individual authorized to calculate the no new revenue tax rate, the voter approval tax rate, and other truth in taxation requirements. Karen, do we have a question? Do you have a presentation? No. Okay. Questions only. So, are there any questions for Karen Smith? Mr. Jackson? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve a resolution designating the district's tax assessor as the individual authorized to calculate the no new revenue tax rate, the voter approval tax rate, and other truth in taxation requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Yes. I knew you had something. Okay.
Nice crowd here, and I'm sure we have a viewing audience, but they may not know that these requirements are.
Sure, Mr. Jackson.
Sorry, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. I did. Thank you.
The no new revenue tax rate, what that is the tax rate that you calculate so that it's exactly what it says, that you have no new revenue. So it does not take into consideration, for example, if property values increase. And we are allowed to, basically with the new 86th legislative session, as you probably remember, anytime property values increase more than 2.5%, they actually reduce that tax rate. It's called compression, but they reduce the tax rate so that what the taxpayer sees is no more than 2.5%. Well, that no new revenue tax rate just, which does not really take that into consideration. It wants to see no new revenue. So you calculate that tax rate. Then the voter approval tax rate, that is the maximum tax rate we can have before we have to call a TRE. Are now called a voter approval election, tax rate election. And then the truth in taxation information is all the information that we have to calculate to prove that we have charged the proper tax rate and that we haven't charged one above and beyond what we're allowed to charge.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9D, the board will consider approving on first reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policies. 9D1, CQB local, technology resources, cybersecurity, a revise. 9D2, EHB local, curriculum design, special programs, a delete. 9D, EFFG local, student welfare, child abuse and neglect, a revise. 9D4, GKD local, community relations, non-school use of school facilities, a revise. If there are any questions? If not, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
I already know the answer to this, but I think it's worthwhile to ask the question for the public. Is Leslie here? I don't see her. So the question is, we're deleting all reference to the ropes course.
In GKD, that is correct, because we no longer have the ropes course operational. I think Mr. Sprague can even chime in. Over the course of the years, many of the elements were, we had to take them down due to trees that were having to be removed. And really the elements were no longer safe. There were safety issues with the course. And then with the limits really on usage for our students during the instructional day, we didn't have a lot of usage of those courses any longer. And so the decision was made to remove all of the elements because, again, we were unable to supervise that, maintain those safely. And so now we're removing that language from our policy.
Very good. Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move the board consider approving on first reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policies, CQB local, technology resources, cybersecurity, revise, EHB local, curriculum design, special programs, delete, FFG local, student welfare, child abuse and neglect, revise, GKD local, community relations, non-school use of school facilities, revise.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Arabia. Are there any questions? No? And all in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9E, the board will consider approving the 2021-2022 Cypress-Fairbanks ISD Student Code of Conduct. Do we have any questions?
We have a brief presentation. That's okay.
I didn't see that. Okay, you do. Dr. Ife Ogumake and Dr. Deborah Stewart. Dr. Ogumake, I think that I saw your daughter in a movie.
Yes, sir, you did.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie yet.
I was pretty impressed.
Well, thank you. I'll share that with her.
Yes.
Another one was on late night TV last night.
No. Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, and another one's playing in the Olympics.
Go ahead,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Graham-McKay.
Iffy, I will just bypass this introduction and it can just be the Dr. O show.
No, it's not my show.
Good evening, Dr. Henry, Board of Trustees. As you know, Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code requires that each year a student code of conduct is approved and adopted by the school board. So we are here tonight to present to you a brief presentation of the proposed upcoming code of conduct. And now without any further ado, Dr. Ogumake.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. Good evening, Dr. Henry, President Covey, Board of Trustees. Thank you again for the opportunity for this brief presentation. And I am happy to share that this year, we really don't have any major changes to the code. You should have your copies with you, and you will notice that the changes that I made are just general editing and formatting improvements to enhance the readability of the document. So we have no major changes to the code. The process for reviewing the code involves engaging various stakeholders. So we involve students, parents, the staff, and community members when we seek feedback from them as we work on the code. The information that we gather is reviewed by a committee of campus administrators and district administrators. We also involve counselors, psychologists, teachers, and parents in that process. The suggestions that are collected are considered when we go through this process of updating the code. Okay. Also, each year, parents acknowledge receipt of the code when they complete the annual student information update online. We make our code available to our community on our district website and on individual campus websites in English and in Spanish. We also make sure that we have paper copies at every campus upon request. The code is usually, we have copies in the principal's office, we have copies in the library, and also we make sure we have copies in the registrar's office. That way parents who want hard copies can have easy access to those copies. Also, to help our students understand the expectations, the behavior expectations of the code, our assistant principals work really hard each year. They provide presentations in the fall, so we capture all our kiddos who start out in the fall. And then there's another presentation in the spring for students who enroll later on in the year. We all continue to partner with our parents because they are the best teachers of their students, and we encourage parents to make sure that they go through the code with their students each year. So it's, really a very brief presentation. I shared earlier that we don't have any major changes. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I want to just quickly shout out to my team, the student services team, and the other staff in other departments who contribute to this process. It's really a wholesome process, and I'm very thankful for the support that we get in doing this. Thank you so much for your attention. I will take questions if you have any at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Ogumake. Anyone have questions? Don, are you going to ask something?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Oh, well, hold on a minute. Dr. Ogumake, can you re-verify, because I know I ask this every year, at least I think I do. I may need to ask Tom because he knows. The way that you know, or what you do, is you offer this to the students and parents, and they are supposed to read it and sign off. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And currently we have that online via our PowerSchool registration. Currently, our parents are doing their annual update, going in online and updating their students' information. So when they get to that point, there's a section where they have to acknowledge that they've received the code and that they have, they have access to it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I know we've had situations where people have said they haven't read the code, but then we found out that they signed and said they had. So,
Yes, sir.
may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
I move that the board approve the 2021-2022 Cypress-Fairbanks ISD Student Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9F, the board will consider approving the renewal agreement with Lone Star College to facilitate the training for Certified Nursing Assistant, CNA, certification for practicum in health science students. Dr. Heather Bergman and Denise Quebecer are available. Are there any questions for either one? Yes, Mr. Jackson?
I know several years ago that we had more students than we had spaces. Have we been able to open up sufficient spaces for students now?
At this time, we are able to accommodate the students who have applied for the program.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. That was my question.
Anybody else? Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll do it.
Go ahead.
I move that the board approve the renewal agreement between Lone Star College and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD to provide certified nursing assistant, CNA, certification training for the CF ISD health science students.
Thank you, Gilbert. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. 9G, the board will consider approving the issuance of career and technical education, CTE, teaching permits to applicants in lieu of standard teaching certification as established in law. They say questions only tonight. Do we have any questions? I do have one, and it just has to do with more of an explanation. I understand what we're doing, but can you explain to our listening audience, the people here, exactly why we allow to have a teaching permit as opposed to the teaching certificate?
Absolutely. We have many programs in our high schools. Let me slide that off so you can hear me. We have many programs in our high schools, and this gives an opportunity for us to find qualified applicants beyond those who have completed the traditional educator preparation programs. In this case, it's the field of automotive. And this individual has a number of industry experiences and certifications and has teaching experience in the automotive industry. So this provides us to be able to bring this individual on to continue the high level of instruction we have in our automotive program.
Awesome. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item?
And Bob, just real quick, just so you know, and Dr. Henry can admit, this is only in the area of career and technical education.
Right.
So it would only be those specialty areas where industry knowledge and training and certifications are actually, more coveted than a traditional teaching certification. So it's not atypical. A lot of districts do that to get the highest quality applicants in that type of area.
Thank you for the clarification. May I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the issuance of career and technical education, CTE, teaching permits to applicants in lieu of standard teaching certifications as established in law.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. Just in case you don't know, we get all this information a few days ago to be able, if you think we're just kind of breezing through this, we read a number of 300 or 400 pages of information, just sharing with you. 9H, the board will consider approving the affiliation agreement between National Aeronautics Space Administration, NASA, Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center, and Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District for the high school students collaborating with NASA to produce hardware and other useful products under HUNCH. Do we have are there any questions? Mr. Jackson?
And I guess this would be for you, Dr. Bergman. Bob and I are very proud, and I know the rest of the board is as well, of the Hunch program. I was permitted to put together a small video on it. But for the viewing audience and those in attendance, they may not know what the Hunch program is. And it's really quite spectacular. So can you comment a little bit about what it is and what some of the accomplishments have been?
Absolutely. This is a partnership between high schools and NASA, as you said, to create hardware as part of the space program. We have a number of courses where students partner with the different pieces in manufacturing, engineering design, our fashion design, and culinary arts. All of those courses at different high schools do partner through this program. We receive industry-level equipment, industry-level sewing machines, lathes, milling machines, and a CNC router. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it gives our students the opportunity to work with industry-level equipment. Students can also earn a certification through this program at their local high school. Probably some of the most exciting things that our kids like to brag about is that we have a gallery table, we have some cargo transfer bags, we have sleeping bag liners, personal hygiene kits, those come from the fashion design and sewing, and we have lockers that our students have created both at the training site here on Earth and currently at the International Space Station.
And you kind of skipped over it, and it sounds like a small item, the sleeping bag liners. So I had an opportunity to visit with the students, but also with the folks from NASA, and they were proud to point out that the Americans were able to use the liner because when you're in space, you slough off skin, and you get to change out the liners, whereas the other country that was largely on the International Space Station, they did not want to use the American product, so they used the same sleeping bag for their entire time period that they were there. And so I was just tickled to find that out. And of course, one of the things our kids designed was actually like a space-age equipment belt. And it was up there, and it was used, and it worked. I just find it fascinating. So thank you for taking the time to talk about it, and thank you, Mr. President, for letting me go into that.
May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
I move the board approve the affiliation agreement between NASA, Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center, and CFISD for the continuation of the Hunch program.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. 9I, the board will consider approving the memorandum of understanding between the University of Texas Health Science Center and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD to provide pediatric and adolescent behavior health services via telehealth. We have questions only for Mr. Garcia or Franklin Sampson. Mr. Ryan.
Either one. Gonna be you, Roy?
But I know I've got Mr. Sampson there.
These are going to be all telehealth, and there's no cost to the students or their families for these. And I know that we've had, and especially with the Olympics recently, the focus on mental health. We've had, and Tom's brought it up in the past, I think the entire board has. And I want to just make sure I understand, so they get a total of 4 visits is what an individual student is allowed?
That is correct. And going back to your initial questions, you are correct in that as well. This is just another opportunity in addition to the counseling staff that we have, the mental health intervention team staff that we have, the youth service specialists, and our psychological services department. This is a way to provide even more opportunity for our students that may be in crisis to receive intervention, crisis prevention, and in the case of stabilization, that as well. It is 4, but then from there, they can then discuss if additional services need to be provided. The big piece of this, of course, that may be asked is, are the parents aware of that? Most certainly, definitely, that's the first contact. There is a process that our school counselors would submit the referral information, communicate with the parent, and then in this case, UT would then, their staff would communicate, University of Texas Health Science Center staff would communicate with the parent to get the information that they need to make sure that they're involved in that process and agree to that.
So, and that was my next question, so thank you. But I want to confirm, so if my child is having an issue and I'm the parent, oftentimes as the parent, you don't know about the issue until it's further along than you would like it to be. And so you're saying that our on-campus counselors will notify the parents and then tell them about the resource available?
Yes, they make the referral, and they communicate with the parent, tell them about the resources, and then staff from UT would communicate with the parent in addition to that and go through that process. And the telehealth could be done at home. And that's another option that is nice to have as well, where the parent obviously is involved in that and is aware of what's taking place.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Jackson?
This was quite timely to show up in the Houston Chronicle, today's newspaper. It shows full-page article, Youth in Crisis. As cases of COVID-19 increase, so do teen suicide attempts, and girls are most at risk. We've also had parents come and speak before the board indicating the concern they have about the stress their children are placed under, particularly during this past year of COVID. So I applaud management for seeking out to expand the mental health capabilities that are there. If a student is at home, let's say they didn't make it to school, and if they find the need, if they have their laptop with them, can they tie in and take advantage of this?
If they've already received the parent consent, they can do that. But if they don't have that parent consent and they haven't gone through that initial consent conversation, not just with the counselor at the campus, but also the consent from the UT Health Services, they have to have that consent in order to have that initial visit. However, if they find themselves in that situation, there are other services that we provide, as you kind of alluded to and you're aware of, that we can assist that young man or young woman.
Thank you all for adding this piece. I think Mark alluded to this, and as Dr. Hotze said, he's not really concerned about this COVID, but it's COVID-27 and COVID-35 and COVID-85. So I appreciate your continuing to put emphasis in this area because I think we're going to need it. So thank you.
May I have a motion, please?
I move that the board approve the memorandum of understanding between the University of Texas Health Science Center and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD to provide pediatric and adolescent behavior health services via telehealth.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? That was you, Tom, right?
Second, yes.
Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9J, the board will consider approving memorandum of understanding between L&A Professional Service, LLC, and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD to offer a program to provide mental and behavior health services for students. Any questions for Roy Garcia?
I do.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rain.
Roy, just to kind of piggyback what we're just talking about, now these, and tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, these services are in person.
Correct.
And a student's allowed up to 5 sessions.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, just if I may, along the lines of what each of you have asked, it's trying to be, even with the support that we have, being proactive to what more can we do, what additional services can we provide our students as it relates to their mental health and the well-being of that.
And then, Tom, you probably have a question. I'll just kind of finish up. our students that are 18, will they still need parental consent, or how are we working that with HIPAA and some of that?
I would refer to Mr. Sampson on that one, because I'm not specific on the age requirement and how does that, and Marnie may have that information as well.
Well, I would say that we would still seek out the parent. If the student was, excuse me, let me say this, Dr. Henry and Cabinet, excuse me. We would seek out the approval of the parent first for the initial session, and then if they're still living in that home. There are situations where our kids are independent students, and of course that's handled a little bit differently at the age of 18.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. May I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the memorandum of understanding between LNA Professional Services LLC and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD to offer a program to provide mental and behavioral health services for students.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9K, the board will consider approving the memorandum of understanding with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, Texas A&M University, and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD related to the Advise TX College Advising Core Program. Are there any questions? Not, may I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the memorandum of understanding with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, Texas A&M University, and Cypress-Fairbanks ISD related to the Advise Texas College Advising Core Program.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. May I have a second? Thank you, McGilbert. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9L, the board will consider approving Character Strong as Cypress-Fairbanks ISD's middle school and high school social emotional learning curriculum 2021-2022. Do we have any questions?
I do.
Who? Mr. Ryan?
Either Roy or Franklin. And we've heard comments about various programs that we have. Why do we have this program in our district? Is that, I guess, the easiest first question for me to ask.
I can start with that and then ask Mr. Sampson to give more detail. This program actually meets the legal requirements from the 86th legislative session, Senate Bill 11, and that's why we bring this forward, because this is something that was part of the session in Senate Bill 11 in the previous legislative session, character education. It took a little time before the state selected a service that was that met the requirements, and this is one of those that does indeed do that, and that's why we selected and recommending this Character Strong.
So
Franklin, any additional information you want to add?
So by law, we have to do the character part of it?
Correct.
And then, and the state selects the programs that fit into that category?
Right, and specifically in looking at Character Strong, some of the character traits that they're discussing is trustworthiness, loyalty, integrity, reliability, punctuality, responsibility, and there are several character traits that are focused on that would be part of this particular program, Character Strong.
And once we get a program like this, if there's parts of it that we don't like, can we not use those parts?
Yeah, I think that the short answer to that is yes. I mean, we're utilizing the information that has been given to us, and then being able to go through the training process, which obviously we haven't started that yet. But it'll start with the teachers and then train them, and it's a lengthy process to go through that before it's instituted, if you will, and taught in the classroom. Part of that process is looking at each of those elements, such as the question you asked, and is there something that we have some flexibility on?
And then if we vote on this and it's approved, how does it go from here to, and this might be a question for you, Mark, to where the parents, where we say, hey, here's our program, where they have complete access to it, and can a parent opt in or opt out of that particular program?
I'm gonna let Roy answer that one too.
Roy?
I'll answer the last part and then ask Franklin to talk to the first part. I mean, as far as the opting out, what has happened in curriculum and CFISD, if there is a lesson that a parent chooses that they do not want their child to be a part of that, they have that opportunity to opt out and have an alternative assignment or an alternative method of instruction that has nothing to do with that. It may, outside of this one, I think back to the CNI, it may have to be aligned with the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, but yes, long answer, they do have that opportunity to opt out as a parent.
Okay. Ms. Jackson, do you have something?
We knew this was coming in some form. I was in the audience when Representative Dwayne Bohart spoke to us a number of years ago, saying that he was going to push forth a bill that addressed this, that was one of his pet bills, and of course, it did pass. Remind me when it passed, which legislative session?
The 86th.
So it's been coming for a while.
Yes.
I know some of our members of the public have expressed concern that perhaps this might have, and I'm paraphrasing, perhaps there's CRT concepts that are embedded in this. Is that possible?
I'd say that the social emotional learning is based upon CASEL's components, which has to do with self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship building, all of which I think will help the student, and it also prepares the students for post-secondary life. So part of putting this character education into place not only helps the kid now, but also prepares the kid in the future.
So would you categorize this as being pro-social or divisive?
Definitely social, yes, sir. Pro-social.
And that, of course, is a trick question, and many of my questions are, but y'all know that about me by now. Wall Street Journal this past week ran an article that said research shows that if you have a pro-social approach, that actually enhances student attainment. Research studies are nice on the one hand, and the law requires us to be research-based. Do we feel that this meets that requirement, that concept?
Sorry, Mr. Jackson. Yes, sir, it does. We prepared documentation to show that. Character Strong places that information on their portal. And of course, it's available to anyone who would like to take a look at it. And part of that requirement was put in place for ESSER 3 funds to, of course, be used for such. So yes, sir, to answer your question.
Based on what Don's questions to you and Roy were, is it safe to assume that this has been vetted by somebody with the state as well?
Absolutely, Mr. Jackson. There were a select group of social emotional programs that were approved by the state of Texas. Part of the delay on us implementing this was waiting on the state to actually list those approved programs, and one of which, of course, is Character Strong.
Very good. Thank you, Franklin. Thank you, Roy.
Sir.
Albert, do you have anything?
Bob, one thing. Do we have, is this time pressing? Do we have to decide on this tonight? If we don't, I wouldn't mind postponing this a month where we have 3 board members who aren't here, where we can let them take a look at it. They've probably looked at it, but they might have discussion points that would be invaluable to us as a team. So I wouldn't mind postponing this for a month.
So we need a motion to table this, right, Marty? Is that correct?
You don't have a motion on the floor.
No, we
correct?
don't have a motion.
Then you can just say, you can just pass on this item. It sounds
All
like Mr. Ryan Mr. Ryan would like us to look at, hear the concerns, look at what the concerns are, look at the curriculum, and bring it back next month.
Okay.
If we still feel.
So we're going to table this.
And Mr. President, I would support that
Okay.
approach as well.
All right, so we're going to table this? Yes, sir.
So if parents decide to opt out, they will still have to come back and take one of the requirements for this course here provided by the state. Is that right?
Well, it's not a course, and the way that works, it's in Chapter 26, it's the Parental Rights Responsibilities chapter, and that is anytime a parent has, I think it's moral or religious concern, objection to any part of the curriculum, they can opt out of that portion. They get another assignment comparable that meets the TEKS, because that everything is aligned to everything we follow is the state board curriculum. So you would get a different assignment that approach that TEK in a different way. And our scope and sequence is on the website. And so that happens occasionally. And so we provide that. They can't opt out of tests. Sometimes the high school kids like to, say they have a moral objection to tests. And so that doesn't work, or an entire unit. But we work, Linda, Dr. Macias, we do this all the time. We work with families and parents and when they have questions like that. So, yeah, we've got that. They would just get a different assignment.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, Holly, then 9L is going to be tabled till next month. 9M, the board will consider approving a change order to the construction contract with ICI Construction Incorporated and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents to complete the additional work in the change order. Are there any questions for Mr. Morgan? You awake, Mr. Morgan? No, he's back there. Any questions? No? May I have a motion?
I'll get it. I move that the board approve a change order to the construction contract with ICI Construction, Inc. for the additional work at Yeager Elementary School. Authorize the superintendent or the designee to execute all necessary documents to complete the additional work.
I didn't see Yeager in there, so that's okay. Was Yeager supposed to be in that motion? It's not. I'm sorry, it's not on my copy. Excuse me. All right, thank you, Gilbert. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. 9N, the board will consider approving the Harris County unobstructed visibility easement along Greenhouse Road adjacent to Hoover Elementary and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any question for Mr. Morgan? May I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the granting of the Harris County unobstructed visibility easement along Greenhouse Road adjacent to Hoover Elementary and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9O, the board consider approving the Harris County temporary construction easement along Cypress West Boulevard adjacent to Cy Park High School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions for Mr. Morgan? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the granting of the Harris County temporary construction easement along Cypress West Boulevard adjacent to Cy Park High School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9P, the board consider approving the CenterPoint Energy Houston Electric LLC blanket utility easement to provide overhead and underground electrical service at the existing Leonard Bronigan Center and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions for Mr. Morgan? Hearing none, may I have a motion? I'm
I
sorry,
just have
you
a
got
quick-
one? Excuse me.
I'm just curious on, is this, I go to the church next door, so I was just, so I was curious, do we tie in with them at the Met, or is this completely separate from them? This is just for
It'll be
Brodigan?
completely separate. It's for the Brodigan Center and it's
Okay.
for the addition.
Okay, that's it.
Sorry you had to walk up for that, Matt. You can Yes. May I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the granting of the CenterPoint Energy Houston Electric LLC blanket utility easement to provide overhead and underground electrical service at the existing Leonard Brodigan Center and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9Q, the board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. 9Q 1-2020 Transportation Center number 6. Any questions for Mr. Morgan? Mr. Jackson?
It would help if I turned on my microphone, right? So talk to me about this. Obviously, there's information in the board book. What is this for? How is this impacted by the revising of the floodplain?
This is for Transportation Center number 6, which will be located on the corner of Woodspillane Boulevard and Jarvis. None of this area is in the floodplain, and we experienced no flooding at any of these facilities during Harvey.
And what about the ingress and egress? Is that also out of the floodplain as well? I.e., is this high or is it relatively flat like most of Houston?
It's higher. It's none of the egress is inside the floodplain.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? May I have a motion?
I move that the board award these construction contracts to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts.
Thank you, Ms. Arabia. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9R, the board will consider approving a resolution to join and participate in the following purchasing cooperatives and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents to each purchasing cooperative listed below. 1. One Government Procurement Alliance, 1 GPA. 2. Equalist Group. 3. National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, NCPA. Any questions for Mr. Powell or Jennifer Chu? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the resolutions to join and participate in the 1 Government Procurement Alliance, Equalist Group, and National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to these purchasing cooperatives.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9S, the board will consider awarding bids and contracts and or authorizing purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item. 9S1, Adobe Sign Software. 9S2, CFISD LTE 1-to-1 program Chromebook quote. 9S3, Contracted Educational Services and Professional Development Services. 9S4, Distributors and Purveyors Catalog Bid for Banquet, Catering, and Concession. 9S5, Enterprise Document Management Solution. 9S6, Restaurant, Catering, and Delivery Services. 9S7, Spirit Apparel and Promotional Items. Are there any questions for Mr. Powell or Ms. Ross? Yes, sir. Mr. Jackson. I bet this was directed at Ms. Ross, is it?
Indeed, you are correct, sir.
Ms. Ross.
and you probably even know the question I'm going to ask. We have a contract here for Chromebooks. I thought we already had bought all the Chromebooks possible in the world. So why are we buying more Chromebooks?
Okay. So just a quick recap on the Chromebook purchases. In July of 2020, we brought to the board and we introduced the CFISD LTE One-to-One Learning Together Everywhere initiative. And at that time, we were asking for 79,500 devices to be purchased. What we did is we gathered our existing devices that were in classrooms, which totaled approximately 52 to 55,000 devices, and we distributed those devices. This particular bid is for these Chromebooks that are aging out.
So these are all replacement Chromebooks. And what is the estimated useful life of a Chromebook?
A Chromebook life is 5 years. The device is designed to automatically receive updates from Google, and it gives an enhanced and secure device and software experience. And once a device reaches its end of life, Google refers to that as an automatic update expiration. The device ceases to work.
Well, that puts a pretty definitive punctuation point on it.
Yes, sir, it does.
Do we really think these can last 5 years?
These are ruggedized devices, and we do anticipate that they will last 5 years.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? May I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board award bids and contracts and/or authorize purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Any, all in favor, raise your right hand. That is unanimous. 9T, the board will consider approving the district's hazardous traffic conditions resolution as required by TEA to receive supplemental transportation funding. Any questions for Bill Powell or Dr. Kane Smith? Bill, I do have one question. Can you share with us if there's been any major changes in what we've seen in the past? And you don't have to do them all, just curious.
No, sir, we haven't had any major changes. Anytime we build a new campus, we'll add that, or if there's been some new construction where it might put a campus in a hazardous situation, then we'll make changes, but we have no changes at this time.
Well, I noticed it's going down 99 just this morning or this afternoon. That's down to one lane if you're headed south on 99.
Yes, sir.
And if I saw the advertisement, it's going to go all the way through November, that's down to one lane, which that was amazing. So does that affect us at all in far as a hazardous route? Do we change that, go another way?
As far as the hazardous traffic definition, it is if the student has to cross a major thoroughfare or go through a commercial area in the district, then we consider that hazardous. So we wouldn't be crossing 99 anyways.
No. Okay.
So it's just specific to each campus and what is hazardous for the students to have to walk to that campus.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And Mr. President,
Yes,
I do have a follow-up question.
Uh-oh, I incited him.
And I don't know that we can do anything about this. As I've shared before, in the 22 days that I was without water because of the freeze, I rented a long-term stay facility, and one of the mornings when I was leaving, I noticed two of our littles. They left two separate rooms. They go out the parking lot, and then they walk along Highway 6. The bus was way over here on a side road. It waited for them, and they got on safely. Do we try and become aware of hazardous situations like that? I really don't know what we could do for them. But that was an awfully busy road there at Highway 6. I mean, those cars, the speed limit is lower, but those cars are hitting it at 50 and 60 miles an hour because they're coming off that high ramp.
Yeah. If we do have that concern, we can definitely look at that stop. If it's brought to our attention, sometimes the route changes aren't followed as they should be. So when those are brought to our attention, we definitely look into it.
Well, in this case, I have no idea how you could have improved upon it unless you literally just drove into where this long-term state facility was.
Unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of stops, and that's why we urge our parents to walk with their children to the stop for their safety and the safety of their students.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, may I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the district's hazardous traffic conditions resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. 9U, the board consider approving the granting of the right-of-way and easement to the North Harris County Regional Water Authority, NHCRWA, located at Moore Elementary School, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions for Mr. Sprague? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the granting of a right-of-way and easement to North Harris County Regional Water Authority, parenthetical NHCRWA, located at Moore Elementary School, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9V, the board consider granting a temporary construction easement to Harris County for tying the new roadway along Sheffield Park Drive and Shield Road into the existing driveway at Swinky Elementary School, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Do we have any questions for Mr. Sprague? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, I move that the board grant a temporary construction easement to Harris County for tying the new roadway along Sheffield Park Drive and Shield Road into the existing driveway at Swinky Elementary School, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents.
Thank you, Mr. Arabia. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9W, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent or designee to finalize and execute a purchase and sale agreement for a tract of land located on Cypress, North Houston, north of the Cy-Fair High School complex, and negotiate and execute all necessary closing documents, contracts, easements, utility service, post-closing, development agreements, etc. This may be discussed in closed session, so we're going to come back to that in a minute. Right now, I'd like to move on to the superintendent's briefing.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm sorry. Dr. Henry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Covey. The first day of school, as anyone listening knows, for the 21-22 school year will be Monday, August 23rd. And certainly we look forward to welcoming back our students and staff, and remind the community to show patience, especially the first week as school, as more vehicles, including school buses, are traveling on the roads, and certainly bus drivers are learning their routes. So please be patient all the time, but especially that first week when we're figuring things out. Registration is approaching for the Bus Buddies program, which invites volunteers to assist young bus riders as they reach their proper drop-off locations during the first 2 days of school, August 23rd and 24th. Look for the Bus Buddies logo on the district website for registration information. And then, even though we haven't started school yet, a reminder that Monday, September 6th, will be a student and staff holiday in observance of Labor Day. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. And before we go to 9W, just like to do a shout out to all of our new teachers that joined us, and we'll be meeting them tomorrow morning. Dr. Stewart, how many new people do we know are coming?
Over 900.
Over 900. Okay. It'll be great to see those new people here. I would like to have a motion to go into closed session, please.
I move that we go into closed session, Mr. President.
Thank you to Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. We'll go into closed session. Appreciate y'all for coming. Thank you very much. All right, let's have a motion to come out of closed session. Thank you. Mr. Ryan may have a second. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. 9W, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent to designate a finalize and execute the purchase of sale agreement for a tract of land located at Cypress, North Houston, north of Cy-Fair High School complex, and negotiate and execute any necessary closing documents, contracts, easement, utility service, post-closing development agreements, etc. May I have a motion?
President, I move that the board consider authorizing the superintendent or designate a finalizing the purchase and sale agreement for a tract of land located on Cypress, North Houston, north of the Cypher High School complex, and negotiate and execute any necessary closing documents, contracts, easements, utility service, post-closing development agreements, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor? That's unanimous. Meeting is adjourned.
And you need to sign that.
I'll do it.